Hello, everybody. My name is Stacia, and I'm just a girl on the internet that likes to talk about movies. And for this week, it's going to be the second installment of my Stephen King series since it's nearing fall time and spooky season. So last week I did Carrie, and this week I'm going to do the 1979 TV movie Salem's Lot. So, the TV movie Salem's Lot aired on CBS television in November of 1979, aired over 2 nights. It's about 3 hours long if you take the 2 nights into consideration. And this is not the only version of the movie, it was also cut down for theatrical release in Europe, and that runs about a little less than 2 hours. The budget of this movie was $4 million. It was originally supposed to be a feature film, but if you've ever seen the novel Salem's Lot, it's huge. And they could never get the script just right for the theatrical version because of how hefty the book itself is. So the decision was made by Warner Brothers to turn it over to Warner Brothers Television and make the two-part miniseries. And this is directed by Tobe Hooper, the director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the movie that got him the job. Richard Kobritz, who is the producer of the movie, saw a screening of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre while they were developing the script and everything, even though Texas Chainsaw Massacre is about 5 years older than this movie, and even before the novel Salem's Lot came out. But he did see a screening of it and decided Tobe Hooper would be the correct one to direct this movie. So yes, it is based on Stephen King's novel, his second novel, Salem's Lot. And so at this point, Stephen King, this is the second one of his works made into a movie or a television miniseries. And it goes, Carrie and then Salem's Lot. So fitting. But of course, this is the first one of his works developed into a TV miniseries. It stars David Soul, Mr. Hutch himself from Starsky and Hutch, as the main character, the writer Ben Mears. It also has a cast full of characters. James Mason, the legendary James Mason, plays Richard Staker. He's sort of the handler of the vampire character. Bonnie Bedelia is in this as Susan Norton. This also has former child actor Lance Kerwin as Mark Petrie in it, who, when he made this movie, was still a kid, but I don't think he does any acting anymore. Lew Ayres is in this as Jason Burke. You have Julie Cobb, George Dzundza, Elisha Cook, Ed Flanders is in it, Geoffrey Lewis is in it. There are just a lot of people in it that, if you watch this, will look familiar to you. It was nominated for a few Emmy Awards in the 1980 Primetime Emmy. It didn't go on to win any of them, but they were Outstanding Achievement in Graphic Design and Title Sequence, Outstanding Achievement in Makeup, and Outstanding Achievement in Music Composition for a Limited Series or Special, the Dramatic Underscore, which was done by Harry Suckman, who this is the last score that he ever did. And Salem's Lot got very good reviews for a TV movie, and it also was a ratings juggernaut. It was actually re-edited and showed the following year. Besides the European theatrical release version, there is a version that's a little bit shorter for TV, but the one readily available is the original TV movie 3-hour version, which I suggest watching it in 2 parts like was originally intended. The first part of it is kind of a setup, getting you to know the town of Jerusalem's Lot, shortened to Salem's Lot. That's the nickname for the town. In the book, it's kind of referred to as both, but in the TV movie decided to make it simpler by having people just call it Salem's Lot. And this was filmed on location in Ferndale, California, with some of the interior scenes shot on the Warner Brothers backlot. And the movie was made for about $4 million for a TV movie, which is an expensive TV movie or miniseries. But miniseries in the late 70s were huge money and huge ratings, and Salem's Lot is no exception to that. And the major differences between the TV movie version and the European theatrical release is the European theatrical release, since for TV it had to be PG rated. For the theatrical release in Europe, they kind of bump up the violence in this that they really couldn't show on television. But this is a prime time horror TV miniseries. It probably goes a little bit harder than a TV miniseries nowadays that would be on network TV. It probably doesn't go as hard as something that would be on a streaming network these days, though. And much like Carrie, if you watched that review that I did, this movie is a lot of buildup and then everything coming to fruition. You get to know the town of Salem's Lot, you get to know the people in it, and then slowly things start happening in the town, and it is a vampire story. It does differ from the book a little bit in the fact that James Mason's character is bumped up because of the head vampire character. In the book is kind of this suave European, leans into that part of like the vampire Dracula story, the seduction and everything. And it was chosen by the filmmakers to make him more of a Count Orlok type of head vampire, more of the Nosferatu type, and you can really see that in the image of the main vampire, who doesn't even appear in the first part of the TV miniseries. The main vampire's name is Kurt Barlow. He's kind of a mysterious figure in the beginning of the miniseries. He is played by Reggie Nadler in this TV series, and he does not have a lot of screen time at all. I think he has less than 5 minutes of screen time in the whole thing. But the image of him, to my young self, would haunt me for years. And speaking of the violence ramped up in the European theatrical release, and that, it's just a few things also, and they cut down a lot of the backstory. There's a prologue in the film and all that. That does not exist in the theatrical release, to my knowledge. I have never seen the theatrical release of Salem's Lot, but they do bump up the violence. That includes a scene where a husband sets up this thing to capture his wife cheating on him and confront his wife and who he is cheating with. George Dzundza plays Cully Sawyer, who is the husband. He expects his wife, Bonnie Sawyer, who is played by Julie Cobb, of cheating with her boss, who is played by Fred Willard. And there is a scene where he confronts them and he holds Fred Willard's character at gunpoint. And in the TV movie version, he points a gun to his head. In the theatrical release version, he puts the gun in his mouth. There's some other scenes like that. Just they decided to bump up the violence, cut down the runtime and bump up the violence. And Salem's Lot did inspire future movie makers. The 1985 movie Fright Night was heavily inspired by this. Also, certain aspects of The Lost Boys were inspired by Salem's Lot TV movie or TV miniseries. I keep saying TV movie. It is a miniseries because it was in 2 parts. Even The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 4 has a segment inspired by this movie. And I hear it was a heavy inspiration for the TV series version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And director-wise, Tobe Hooper was not the first choice to direct this movie. George A. Romero, Mr. Night of the Living Dead himself, was originally approached to direct this, but at that time there was a slew of vampire movies that came out, including John Badham's Dracula, Werner Herzog's Nosferatu and the Vampire, and when they turned this into a TV miniseries, Romero dropped out because he felt like he wasn't able to make the film he wanted because of having to deal with the American TV system and having something appropriate to broadcast. And Reggie Nadler, who played the head vampire, was kind of disappointed that his role was cut down so short. Like I said, he has a lot less than 5 minutes of screen time in this, and it is all in the second part of the miniseries. He did film more. His part was supposed to be bigger, so he was kind of disappointed that most of what he filmed didn't make it in. So what do I think of Salem's Lot? I think it is a very good horror movie. It is not too scary. A lot of it exists on just vibes, especially the first part of the miniseries, probably because, it was relegated to a PG-ish rating. Back then, we didn't have a TV rating system like we do now. When I was growing up, that didn't exist. That didn't come around until I was grown. And let's just say we were a lot more liberal with what we let people watch on TV of a younger age. And I was very young when this came out, and the thing that stuck with me is the image of the head vampire scared the bejesus out of me. But hey, I lived through it. And I think it's a very competent, like I said, it exists on a lot of vibes. It doesn't pick up until the second half of the miniseries, really. Today's audiences might not like the whole building of the story. Like I said, Carrie is much like that in the thing that not a lot of happens during Carrie. It's a lot about vibes with a big payoff at the end, and this is told the same way. It does differ from the Stephen King novel, but I think they made some very relevant choices of changing it from the novel, and certain characters had to be combined for this because Stephen King likes the novel with a lot of characters, and you just, even if it's shot in miniseries style, you just can't, it could last forever. And this has been remade a couple of times, and this is definitely, in my opinion, the best version of Salem's Lot. There's a version with Rob Lowe as the main character. There is also a version that just came out that I don't know anybody likes that one. But this, like I said, it's a lot of vibes with some very good storytelling. Is it jump out, get you, gory, scary? No. But it is very spooky vibes with several scenes that are legitimately scary. So if you've never seen Salem's Lot, the TV movie version from 1979, give it a try, especially if you're a Stephen King fan. Like I said, this is the second thing of his that was ever made into any sort of Hollywood production. It is based on his second novel, and it's the first TV miniseries based on a Stephen King book. So if you're a fan of Stephen King, you gotta see Salem's Lot. And like I said, this is the version I think you should see. But thank you for joining me this week. Like I said at the beginning, my name is Stacia, and I'm just a girl on the internet that likes to talk about movies. Thank you so much for joining me. See you next time. Bye.